Have a good night to everyone, guys, and welcome to this seventh workshop of 2020 organized by Football Queensland. As you know, the topic is around player retention. So obviously player retention in the sport, in football, but also from a club perspective, your players retention. So we're gonna touch on this. Originally, we decided to go with two presentations, but due to the importance of this topic, we decided to split it in two separate meetings. So we'll have another one in a couple of weeks or so, and so we can go a little bit more in detail about some strategies moving forward. Look, before I start sharing my presentation, some housekeeping. The session will be recorded for professional purposes. First of all, professional development purposes, and the second one to make it available to everyone who cannot attend tonight. As I mentioned before, many people are excused because of training and many things on. So it's not a big deal that they will have access to the video later on. That's it from my side. This is one of the topics that at the start when we sent out the survey was one of the most that had most consent and an interest around it, and that's why we decided to get deeper on this matter. We'll be using a new features tonight, which is the breakout rooms later on. So don't be scared if suddenly you get in a separate room and with only a few of you, but that will help conversation. Look, as usual, please stop me anytime should you have any question or any comment, any observation, because tonight it's a great opportunity to hear your thoughts around it. I'll start sharing my presentation. Can you please give me a sign to see if you can see the page? Is TD Workshop player retention correct? Can
it's all good. We can see it.
Yeah, perfect. So player retention. As discussed, we do one part today with some reflection on strategy moving forward, and then in a couple of weeks we do the second part where it's going to be about player movement, trials, and long-term agreements. But tonight is more about what clubs can do to increase the retention rate of the players. You think this is a joke, but no, it's not. Obviously, I'm from Melbourne, and COVID, there is a lot of emphasis on flatten the curve around COVID, but this is actually how can we flatten the curve of players leaving football. We're leaving football. So this is a research that was done recently in 2019. And it shows two curves. The blue one is for male and the second one for female. And basically indicates when players leave the game, at what age players leave the game. As we can see, there is a top for the boys quite early, between, let's say, 9 and 11 years old, while for the female it's slightly later, around 12 and 14. So that's something to consider, but our main objective is how can we really flatten the curve so we reduce this, the numbers. Having that in mind, we found that there are similar patterns in other sports as well. So it's not just football, that's a common pattern, okay? And as I discussed, male and female pattern are similar, but the peaks are slightly different. The interesting things are the reason for dropout. And there is not only one reason, obviously. But some of the reason I think we can, as a club, as our coaches, as a TDs, as our coach developers, we can have an input on those. And the main reason for dropout are those: poor quality coaching, poor club culture, and the environment that we are able to create in the clubs.
It's true.
Nice. Who said true?
Me.
So yeah. Okay, we'll expand this in a sec. But if you want to add any comment around that, why did you say true? Based on what? What's your experience?
I just think that.
John.
Yeah, it's me. I just find that not everybody's got good culture, good club culture, and
Okay.
when you blend it with environment, right? You could break down environment, to looking at poor quality coaching could come in and blend in with environment, right? The facilities that you have could work in with environment and then go against a club culture. We really work hard at Lions to try and cement a club culture. We really put a lot of effort into that. That's one of our priorities.
And that's fantastic, and that should continue. Yeah, good point, John. Thanks. Then obviously a perceived lack of value for money, high fees and this kind of stuff. Quality of the competition as well. But many, that's something important. It's for some of them, it's too competitive. There is too much pressure, especially at the NPL level, WPL level. And then obviously some injuries, especially for older boys, let's say, or in women's over 18s, let's say, in the performance phase. So that's physiological, understandable. But here we can, as a club, we can have an input on this. Now, that's a research that was done in 2012. So it might be slightly not up to date. However, it's relevant because from other figures hasn't changed much since then. So the 32% of boys and girls playing from 5 to 9, the 42% stops after just 1 year of playing football. So that means that probably they don't enjoy it, or there is something wrong in that experience at early stages.
Maybe not.
67%.
Maybe not.
Sorry,
Also, you've got to look at young kids, because you've got the young age there of when people drop out. A lot of them are kids who don't know what they want to do. So there's a lot of kids who drop out because their dads or mums say you want to play football, but they don't. So they drop out as well. So I reckon that would be a high. Kids trying to experience and figure out what they want in life, and they never find it.
Yeah, which is fantastic, and which is actually something that we encourage, because there are some research saying that players that reach the highest level of football basically have practices more than one sport until 13 and 14. So that's a very good point. However, it's also true that some of those experiences were not the most enjoyable. So obviously we cannot address both of them, but definitely for those that think that experience wasn't great, we need to do something about it. 67% of the players were not contacted by anybody in the club. And obviously, once they get older, that's extend to an 80%. Funny, and that's a club that they could have done something potentially. So 32%, they didn't do anything basically to stop those players from quitting. 32% attempted to contact those players, but what about the other ones? And 56% they decided to stop during the season, so indicating negative experience once again during the season. Another couple of dates here, data here. 3-5 years old, but still valuable. And across the country, it's same percentages. So if we can see from NPL, we have around 20% of players that actually stop playing after they've been, let's say, released, or they're not part of the NPL area anymore. In the community space, that percentage is a little bit higher. It goes around the 33% mark. So yeah, something once again to consider. The same research basically, and that's something that I've noticed. I moved to Australia 11 years ago now, and one of the first things that I've noticed at the end of my first season, basically the TD said, "Oh, David, I ensure you will be available for the next couple of weeks because we run trials." And my first question was, I said, "Trials for what?" And it was explained that every club has to, every team has to. Hold on a sec. I've been told stop sharing the screen, correct? Just a sec, I'll share it again. So my story was, is it okay now?
Yes, you stopped sharing when you started to talk about the data of playing different sports and community sport dropout.
Yeah, that was not on purpose. I apologize for that. So we go back very quickly, but anyway, 20% about the NPL players dropping out, and 30% in the community space. So then I moved to the example that, yes, when I arrived, basically, they asked me, "Are you available for trials?" And my first question was, "Okay, what's the trials about?" "Oh yeah, every team will open trials for everyone to join in." And I found out that every club, basically you were starting again, maybe 50% of the team was changing every year, which I found very, very strange, to be honest, because in Europe, it's not like that. And that tells me that basically there is a little loyalty between club and the players with the current system, where there is this nomadic experience and players going from club to club, yeah, every year or every couple of years, which is something that could be detrimental for those players. Yeah, I'll let you read through very quickly, but at the end of each season, we were starting again, and that's not very good for players' development, for their ongoing players' development, and to reach the outcomes that we expect at the high performance phase. So any comments so far, guys? Anything you want to add or point out? No? So I keep going then. And last one is say that 50% continue to play in the community, but the other one, 50% basically of NPL players, they stop playing. So big numbers there, high percentages. So from a research study that was conducted among the European football academies, basically they found out that the not good enough cannot be underestimated. It could have a very negative impact on welfare and mental health of young players. So that's something very, very important. We need to distinguish between intrinsically motivated and detrimentally extrinsically motivated players. And this study showed that those players, the intrinsically motivated, are actually impacted very negatively when or if the trials doesn't go in the right way. Or so once again, knowing your players and knowing how they could react after trials for being not selected, it's very important for the clubs. And that suggests that maybe we don't need trials, because the trialing process for very young players at that age, it could be traumatic, very traumatic. And that affects their retention in the game. Another thing that was found out is the feedback that the clubs gives to the junior players. So there were poor communication with those players, and that will affect their reaction when they've notified basically that they're not part of that club anymore. So question for you guys: what can community clubs and the football community in general do about this issue? Thoughts? And I'll open up for a couple of discussions there if you have questions. So what can we do?
Everyone's working.
I had a chat to Tom earlier about this, just on while we were talking about something else. I think probably getting away from trials altogether is a good idea. Easier said than done, because there's so much turnover in the clubs. But if you select a player, especially in the NPL age groups, they should just be permanent. And then, if you've got issues with development or behavior or whatever, some kind of like long-term 3-stage process where you meet with the player, you identify the issues, then slightly more serious, and maybe the third time you're looking at releasing them, whether that's the end of the season or sooner. It is probably a more safe approach to doing that in terms of long-term development, and not just churning through players. But again, on the flip side, there's other factors that make that difficult, especially the standard of your team.
What do you do? What do you do then with, I don't know, say top 10 gets selected okay, but then you've got the next 5 who are okay, and there's other 5 or thereabouts in the similar area. Do you stick with the 5 you've got, or do you look at the new players and bring them in as well? Because where we are, we become elitist. So community clubs, we're working on fixing that now, but community clubs have always looked at us as though Thunder have thought themselves better than the community clubs, which of course we haven't. So where would you go with that then?
That's a question for Taz, isn't it?
No, it is. It's for Taz.
To be honest, I was in Mackay, Chris, so I understand the issues you've got. I think, to be honest, it's a completely different way of looking at it. You have to stay very tight with the community clubs. When I was there, I was trying to, have relationships with all the clubs and make sure they're included in the process. Like, some of their coaches came and assisted as neutral selectors in the trial process. So I think it's just really different for you guys in that environment. So I don't know if this completely can be cross-compatible between regional and then country. Regional and then metro.
So what we're trying to do is look at community club players as well. So we don't have to hold the trials and then bring them in just for see whether they're better or what. I don't know. It's all up in the air a little bit at the moment about what we do with trials. But interesting point. Thanks for that.
And guys, good that you have brought this conversation up, because that would be a key element of our next workshop when Tom Laxton will present something very interesting around it. Now I would like to pose you some questions, which you don't need to answer. Just keep them in the back of your mind. It's what we're interested to know is what can the clubs do for the players, and how can you facilitate that basically higher retention rate to drop? You know, so that's the first question. What can you do as a club? So how can club create a great environment for players, parents, coaches, and everyone involved in the club? Are clubs aware of the customer satisfaction? So how do you know that your players are happy and the parents are happy? How can you monitor that? And same process for the coaches. How do you know if your coaches are happy in your club? We don't need answers. I know so far it was quite boring, but now we'll have a bit of fun, promise, okay? So, and I apologize if you saw numbers and slides and stuff like that, but now we will have a bit of fun, promise. We're gonna split you in 2 groups, and we're gonna discuss 2 different topics, or 2 different scenarios, let's put it that way, okay? Scenario 1. Can you see my screen? Please confirm, Gabo, with a thumbs up. Yeah, cool. Okay. You are the TD of one of the most prestigious clubs in Queensland. Okay, that historically has a big focus on letting grow your players in-house to then push them up, okay? And maybe use them for the first team and so on. The club faces issues though with this player retention because there is an emerging club which is linked to Man United, big brand, and they attract your best players. Budget in football, as usual, 0, limited, yeah? Cool. But you have a contract, the club signed you for 2 years, okay? So for 2 years, you're apparently safe. Love to see what kind of discussion can come up in relation to how you can implement a strategy moving forward. Okay, so that's the first case scenario. I'm gonna share it then in your chat so you can still refer to it. The second scenario is you're at TD on an NPL club, but you got a satellite club in the community space, and that's something that Chris mentioned. So perfect. So you're gonna work. You work together. It's 2 of you. Clear objective in mind. Medium term, 5 to 7 years. Have your senior team made up with basically majority of your players grown in the club. They started there. They made it all up until the end. As an example, 50% of the player on year 6, and then you go up and up again every year, okay? The data, the percentage are not important, but the focus is we want to grow our first team with in-house players, okay? Currently, 3 players are in the first team that are from the club, but there are some really good coming up, okay? So how would you outline your development plan? Everyone on board with that? Clarity? Cool. Now I stop sharing. Let's see if, and now we go in our chat, in our rooms. We make 2 rooms. Let's see if I am lucky. Hold on a sec. Yep. And guys, we'll see you. So basically, love to see if you can discuss among yourself. Now, hold on a sec though. How many? 15, 14? Yeah, 2 groups. 2 groups, it's fine. What about if 6:30 now, 6:30, if we catch up around 6:45 again? Would that make sense? Everyone in? Thumbs up, please. That should be fine, guys. Should be fun, yeah? If it's not, leave the room and go to training. No, I'm kidding. hopefully we'll have a nice discussion here. Okay, cool. We'll see you in 15.
Hi, guys.
Hey man, look at this, a dream team.
All right, we're all in.
I'm happy here, just trying to ask Davide which topic we should go deeper in to. One second, guys. I just texted him on a chat. They say Davide is coming to our room, so he will pick the topic for us.
Hello, hello. You have
There he is.
scenario 2. Because you are in room 2, you have scenario 2, which I'm gonna share it in a sec with you, just for as a reminder, okay? Okay. Yeah, leave it to you guys. I'm not gonna.
Davide, the sharing didn't come across, and
It's on the chat. So if you go down the bottom, you should have a chat window,
okay.
and from there you should be able to see it.
Okay, I'm still learning it.
That's all good. So has anyone had any sort of experience with something like this before? Working with satellite or sister clubs in the community space? Anyone done that before?
No.
TAS, potentially? No? Cool.
All right, so our topic, not sure everyone sees that in the chat. I can read it now.
Might as well.
It's quite general, this, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
I think step number 1 is community engagement, really. So how you go about doing that, probably up to each club individually. So homegrown players, so players from, I guess it works pretty well with Thunder, to be honest. Chris would have something similar to this probably happening at the moment with the SAP coaches going around to local clubs just to sort of gain more interest and have that community engagement there. 5 to 7 years for the top team, you're looking at probably average age of 22 to 25 for a top team. So yeah, targeting more your 15-year-old players. I'll let someone else talk for a bit.
We are TD of the MPL club, right? And we need to work out what YDP we want to do for the MPL club.
Well, Taz, you are the MPL clubs, but you also have a community clubs attached to your club, okay? So there is good relationship with this community club, and you work closely with the other TD to implement something. So where do you start from? What's your and I'm asking you, Taz, I'm asking the group, Scott, Gary, John, where would you start from?
I guess the first thing I'll imagine, hey team, how we doing? I'll say, is you have to really be explicit in your, your development plan, and actually state it from the onset. This is a goal for us. Is to,
your vision, yeah?
Yeah.
That's the target for 5
Yeah.
to 7.
And just put it out there for everyone to see, and don't be ashamed or embarrassed about it. You want, and that's the goal. That's a vision. That's what we're working towards. And once, and then it's a matter of, like Briac says, communicating that in the community, getting it out there, and getting the buy-in from, your satellite clubs, players within the club. That's the goal, right? You don't want to have to go and recruit every year 9 players. And obviously you'll have lots of different discussion points in this one, I think.
I can talk from us at Rochdale with what we did. So when I first came back to the club 5 years ago, we had a really good under-16 side that we sort of targeted to be playing first team. So it's nothing to do with another club. So we really focused on that team and those players. And at the moment, so for our grand final team last year, 5 of those players started in the grand final. So 4 of them were 20 and 1 of them was 18. Now he's gone back to the Raw now, but they were 2 really good age groups that we had. We had a really good under 15s and really good under 16s. And we made sure that we put a lot of resources into them with coaches, making sure they always had good coaches that we've worked with them, interacted them with the seniors when we could from a younger age, so they got a taste of it and got ready for it. We lost 1 player to Lions, Keegan Jelovic, who was one of those players as well 2 years ago. But we really focused on an age group that we saw that had potential. We've got it again this year with our under 15s. We've got a very good under 15 side. And that's our next project, to work on those players, to fast track as many of those players as we can to hopefully play senior football. Because for us, we've got too many clubs to worry about that are close to us to try and have a relationship with a sister club. I can't think of Logan's going to work with us and give us players for seniors or strikers or the other clubs that are in our catchment area. So we really just need to focus on what we've got, and I'd imagine every other club's the same. So we'll break down our 15 squad now, and we've already looked at what we've got in the years above them and what we need to put into them, what we need to bring in. So that was our target.
I expect a question here from the group. So, well, a couple of questions maybe. So in what Scott just shared with us.
Well, we're in a similar position with East, Holland Park, Olympic, all in our catchment area. So we can't really develop a sister club or relationship with a community club that comes from within our club anyway. We have Brisbane Premier League football teams in that. So we're collectively monitoring our talent within the club and looking for expressions of interest every year for 1 or 2 players to strengthen our squads.
Okay, but look, let's back to our scenario where there is a community club that you are attached to and the relationship is very strong. So how can you maintain that relationship, and how, I'm asking the group now, and how can you differentiate yourself from another NPL club next door?
And just sharing of intellectual property, sharing of resources would strengthen that relationship, I'd imagine.
Yeah, if you've got a sister club, you're assisting with its club development plans as much as you can, working with their TD to develop young players.
At the end of the day, you're both going to benefit if they're developing good players.
Yeah, you're both on the same journey.
Yeah. We here at the GAF, we have a good relationship with UQ, and they, they're very open and funnel their best players in through to us each year. which we're very grateful for.
Any different thoughts? I don't know. Maybe someone saying, we don't care about a sister club. We can do everything in house, in our own. And if so, how? Obviously, we deviate from the scenario, but if that can initiate some discussion, happy for you to talk about that.
I'll talk on a sister club situation. Look, I think I wasn't involved. I don't know if I was involved, but I know the East tried to do it with Southside Eagles a few years ago, and I think that the thought process was right. But talking about a YDP, I don't think that the whole club was on board with what was being proposed, and then it broke down. So I think very clearly in the YDP, you need to state what your goals are, how you're going to interact, like Gary was saying, whether it's sharing of intellectual property, sharing of coaches, whether stronger players go to one club and weaker players go to the other club. I think that's what's key in the YDP and getting the buy-in. I think what happened between East and Eagles was that people, to be honest, at East, from what I'm aware, didn't realise what was going on, didn't have the buy-in, and then the whole thing sort of broke down. So it's very important that it's clearly outlined, the relationship, and that everyone in both clubs is understanding and supportive.
Okay. Anybody else has something to add?
I just find it hard now to be even talking about sister clubs when we're all in the same level, up to the under 16s. We're all in that area where we're fighting for the same sort of players. So the players are already at the other clubs. So for us to work with, we don't have
you got, which is something, Scott, that you did years ago. You mentioned with the under 15, yeah. So basically, you focus all the resources around that team in order to develop those players, correct?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That was in-house. So for us to work with another club, we don't have another club in our area that we can really work with that's going to give us the quality of players to come into our program.
But in this scenario that we are talking about, we have a good club there who can help us out. So it's an additional resource, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, with these meetings, we don't get too many of these meetings. So, like, I think we've really got to focus on what we actually can work on. Like with this scenario here, fantastic. Probably 3 years ago, this would have worked because when we weren't an MPL club, we used to work with the Brisbane Strikers to give them our players for their SAP programs. But now we've got our own SAP program, we've got our own MPL license, and probably what Taz is saying there with Southside Eagles. I don't think Reedy's going to say to Taz, here, have my best players anymore, because they're in the same competition.
Okay. Yeah, no, look, that's an issue that, many clubs has to face. So, okay, look, good discussions. I think we'll go back in the big room, and love to hear, guys, a few from you, because the conversation was quite good. Some of the key points of our discussion. So Scott and Gary, if you want to share what we have discussed with the main group, that would be fantastic. Matt, can I count on you? Yeah, thank you, guys. Cheers. Okay, we'll close. We go. Okay, we should be all in the main session now. There was some urgency from the other group to come back in desperately. Yeah, we'll break out in 40 seconds, guys. Be patient, but we are good. Have a rest in the meantime. Too many good discussions in the room number 1, and now we need to breathe. And recover. Look, like a magician. In 4 seconds, everyone will be here. Have a look. Phew. We lost someone along the way, I guess.
Yeah, Tass had to leave. I know that one.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, everyone else is here, yeah?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So guys, I'll leave it to you. Let's start the conversation. What were in room 1? What were the main point of discussions that you had?
Was that our group? Oh, sorry, I'm confused.
Yeah, that was your one, Tommy.
Scenario 1, so yours, yeah, Tom. Yeah.
Tom's our spokesman. He took notes.
I did actually take notes.
Yeah, you're the spokesman.
Just all right. Well, I'll wrap it up if you don't mind. Then from our group, we had some really good points. So our scenario was about we're a prestigious club, but down the road, like a rival club has got a partnership with a professional club, and we're losing players across there. So what we spoke about was some things to sort of combat that, was making sure that we had a bit of a carrot at the end of our academy pathway and stepping into the first team. So, making sure that there's actually a tangible route into a first team for our academy players. Having a really good core program. So while we felt like down the road, they might have bought a partnership or paid to have a Premier League name come down and be very superficial, our core program was going to be really good and unchanged for 2 years. And that was really important as well, like small changes, trying to keep the coaches the same. And then a really good discussion just about leveraging off the history of the club and to sort of build that into the younger players, sort of SAP and younger ages, that there's a reason that this is a prestigious club and there's lots of history. And the last discussion was quite an interesting one, was about embracing the rivalry between the club down the road. And sort of saying, they can be rivals. That's fair. On the pitch, we can have a rivalry, but off the pitch, we work together. So, some really good points. And David, I think that it'd be good if we can, after this meeting, maybe summarise the points that we make, just so that they're just not lost in our conversations, and we can flick them out to clubs.
Yeah, we can definitely, once I'll send the recording and everything, we can definitely share the main point of discussion. Absolutely, no problem. And then I think I have to rely on Scott and Gary to lead these next couple of minutes to wrap up our discussions, to summarize our discussion.
Yeah, I'll go first on it. I just said, sort of with us, the scenario probably 3 or 4 years ago, you could work with, because when we weren't an NPL club or didn't have a SAP license, we worked with strikers to promote our SAP players, now our small-sided football players to there. But now that we're all on the same wavelength, I said we've really started working closer on our own programs now, and making sure that we try and target age groups that we look at. I said when I came to Rochdale 5 years ago, we had a very good under-16 side that won the Brisbane Premier League competition, and we really worked hard on those players. We had 2 good age groups, a 15s and 16s team. And then last year's grand final, we sort of saw the fruit truly come to the show, where we had 5 of the players now starting 11. That were all from that 15s and 16s age group. Plus, we lost 2 Lions who played in the Lions grand final team, Keegan Jelovic. So really, we could have had 6 players from that 15s and 16s team go into a final.
So Scott, just to basically summarize, the main point that you want to share is you have focused heavily on a specific group, allocating your best coaches and most of your time in order to bring those players up, correct? And expose them to a senior football quite early, so they could gain experience on that regard. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did. I mean, obviously, we try and work on every age group as much as we can. We saw something special in these players. A lot of homegrown players. 2 of the players have been at the club since they were 3 years old, so didn't know anything different. But we've worked as hard as we could on them, started exposing them to senior football when they were 17, 18, training with the first team.
But in the end, it worked, correct?
Oh,
So
yeah.
you were successful with your plan. Okay,
Yeah, it worked.
that's good.
As I said, we lost Keegan 2 Lions. We lost Liam MacArthur back to the Brisbane Roar. But you don't mind if players are moving on to a high level. Keegan's now back at the Roar as well. So
You should be happy and proud.
yeah, so for us it's good. But that's the thing now. We're looking at another age group now that we think we could get 3 or 4 players hopefully to first team level in 4 or 5 years again. And we've already got...
Okay, guys, I open another question. Do you think that, okay, Scott in his club, he focused on one particular group, let's say. Do you think it's possible to focus on maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 groups for the medium term outcome, let's say? Yes, no.
Yeah, if I can jump in now then. I guess some of the other side of the discussion was around working with that sister club and being really clear and concise around, having a shared vision. And once that's out in the open amongst the community, then, that community, that those clubs then can work towards a common goal. The sharing of resources, sharing of intellectual property, and that sort of stuff, so that you get the buy-in from everyone involved. Right down to policies and procedures, so everyone knows how we're working together, how we're communicating, and there's as little grey area as possible.
So clarity on the vision and philosophy, and clarity in your communication, clarity in the marketing, maybe.
And then, if you've got a robust youth development plan, then essentially you can work across all age groups in, and if it's explicit, then everyone knows what the goal is, and everyone wants to go and represent your club in the first team.
So, thanks, Gary, for your input on this, on summarizing the main points. Now, I still want some answer to my question, which was: do you think that Scott example is applicable to maybe 2, 3, 4 teams at the same time, or is for your reality too onerous in terms of resources and so on?
I cut out then. So did you mean for a pathway to your first team?
Yeah. Basically, okay. Scott was mentioning that, you focus on the under 15s. Is this something that we can do with, I don't know, 3, 4 teams?
Well, we are, when Thunder got relegated last year, this year we're second or something, whatever it is. We have consistently had 9 or thereabouts players, 10 players who have all come through the system.
So 50% roughly, yeah?
Over 50% have always been for the junior system. We can't get players to come from Brisbane. If we do, they play for one game or train one night a week or whatever. This year we've got 2 Italians playing. A couple of years ago we had 3. We had 2 people from Sydney and an Italian play, and the rest were pretty much all from Toowoomba or Toowoomba based. So we find it really hard to drag players from other areas. So we have to develop them. So that's the number one thing for our club is we have to.
Chris, okay, so I want to touch on this point because apparently if you have over 50% in your first team as players that grow up in your club, you must be successful, yeah? Or anyway. So what is differentiate your clubs from other clubs that they might not do that?
I don't really. Yeah, geography. That's pretty much it. Where we are, we can't get people to come up. But
so
we're very lucky. We're very lucky. We also link with the Toowoomba Grammar School, who have got a fantastic football program. So some kids come to Toowoomba to go to school at Grammar, for example, amongst other schools, but mainly Grammar. And we've linked in with them, and that's how we've been pretty successful. However, when it comes to the top team, half of those players have finished school and moved on, or moved to Brisbane, or moved to wherever. So what we have found is the players who were not the stars consistently in their teams are the ones who are developing later with more confidence through the under 18s and the 20s teams, and they're getting lots of experience playing in senior football.
So you are saying something very important here.
You can't forget the lower tier. You can't forget them. The top tier are fantastic and make you look good at the time. And yes, some will continue to go through, but you've got to see some of these other ones who are in and out of the yearly teams, and look after them as well.
Yeah, so basically your philosophy would be more as many as possible, as long as possible. So your retention rate, it's pretty good. Very high on the regard. Okay, fantastic. But look, you said the geography, obviously.
We've had, but one thing which has sort of pissed me off a little bit, we are losing players at the moment now who are enjoying the coaching, who are enjoying football, who are enjoying everything. However, Football Queensland have called an academy and development. Now, for me, that's not necessarily the way Thunder have performed over the years, but it's more against the way the paperwork has been filled out. So administration. So we've this year, just since it's been called development and academy, had players who have left and gone to another. We're in development. They've now left and they've gone to the academy because they think they're going to get more opportunities, where obviously they're not, because they've gone to a weaker team I shouldn't say that. In my opinion, the players who have gone have had pretty good coaches with them, and they've gone through for the whole pathway. If Football Queensland had called it blue or red or some other names which aren't psychologically detrimental to a player.
Yeah, give me the choice. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's how we do it. I'll cut that bit out, but how we do it is we try and keep everyone as long as we can, and try and treat the people who are coming in and out. Hence the question to Taz about players who he mentioned to try not to have trials. We sort of do have to keep everyone involved and make our squads as big as possible.
Okay. Nice. Anybody else? John, Nicole, which I don't think is Nicole, but or Holland Park. Sorry, I don't know your name, right?
Yeah, guys.
Anyone?
Let me introduce the guys to you. Mark Boyd is Holland Park Hawks technical director, and Paul Dinner, his wife is Nicole, who is running the administration at Peninsula Power. I just would like to list an example to this conversation. You know, our group's topic was about identifying a youth development plan suits your club to promote your homegrown players to the first team. But there were a twist on our task, and you said working with a community club underneath. And I had an interesting experience. I think it was a rather successful experience because a few players since then from this program was playing for Junior Matildas or Young Matildas. And it was started by Trish Darin, who is still at Eastern Suburbs working with Tez. So at Olympic, when I was the TD there, we inherited a girls program in the first year of MPL, which was set up by Cavendish Road High School, Enerly FC, and partly Eastern Suburbs. But as Olympic got the MPL license, the concept was that an MPL club is sort of taking over in a region, in an area, both the boys and the girls program. And what we ended up doing with Trish is on our jersey, even we played in red and white at the home games. The away games, we used the community club's colors. We played in blue and white. Also on the players' shirt, there were an Olympic and an Enerly FC logo at the same time, probably even the Cavendish Road High School logo. I can't remember. And we also used the Anerli FC facilities for training, and we played our home games at Olympic. And it was a rather good partnership in youth development, and a lot of players in a few years' time started to hit, first in football, then join the QAS or become junior or young Matildas. So I really enjoyed building this sort of symbiosis between a club, a community club, and also a school. And I think that's something, a type of a model can work. Chris mentioned that he has rather good experience working with the Toowoomba Grammar School. I know Scotty has good relationships at Rochdale with certain schools. Obviously, his area in Rochdale is very saturated. But I think if we can break down that belief that it is one cluster, our club, and we can open other opportunities for players, support our program with sort of a second tier or with a community club. We potentially, if you talk about a boys program, you potentially push your next best players into the community club you are supporting. And I think it's super important to not only create a club environment, but also find a link to a nearby school to have sort of a better understanding of the players' everyday life and whereabouts. And this process, in my experience, take a lot of players into first team football and beyond. And it was a nice project. The project has stopped. Olympic and Anerli are not working together anymore, even they could have. And they don't have a relationship, in my understanding, with Cavendish Road. So the sustainability is still a question, but probably it is easier to create in regional areas like in Toowoomba, where there is a relative standalone relationship between the grammar school and the MPR club.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Gabor. Any comments on this? Any observation? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. And okay, before Tom is gonna jump on his 5 minutes preso, I'll need to share again my screen. Okay, some reflection. So we know that that's the pyramid, isn't it? Can you please confirm, Tom, that you see my screen? Yeah, perfect. So grassroots, talent, and elite. Yeah, we all agree with that, correct? So grassroots, senior football, junior football, mini roos. Talent, state teams, NPL, NPLW, and so on. SAP program, fantastic. SAP phase. Elite, national teams, A-League, W-League, Youth League. No problem with that. Unfortunately, we know that that pyramid is actually not like this. In the reality, it might look like this. Yeah? Scott Gary, I get you on my screen. Give me thumbs up if that makes sense. Yeah, so majority is grassroots. Yeah, in Queensland, we got 22 clubs, 20 NPL, and all the other ones is community, grassroots. So think about this. With a higher player retention, our aim is to have this. Vaster grassroots, pretty sure that will lead to a bigger talented pool. And I'm sure that even at the top, that pyramid is going to be wider. Am I right or I'm wrong? Please, I want to hear at least two voices. Just give me a yes, Davide.
Yeah, I will give you my opinion. I'm not sure.
But Ignacio must be a positive one. Yeah, you need to validate what I said. Yeah. No, go for it if you don't think so.
No. Well, it makes sense. Obviously, more quantity, more quality in theory. But I always go back to those countries which are a small population and they don't have so big grassroots, and they still work. And they still work and very well because they work very well with the best players. So it's compatible, all right? And you can, why not?
No
You
doubt.
can both,
No doubt.
both ways, okay? So you work on the quantity, you work on the numbers, and that is one thing, and then you work very well with the best players. But many times we mix up everything, and it's like, okay, so make the decisions based on the numbers, and everyone can participate. Well, again, that's not one thing or another, and I think working very well with the best players is something that we need to do for sure, because if not, those elite players, well, maybe they are average if we don't work very well with them. So
absolutely, yeah, absolutely, Ignacio. But my point was, as we are talking about retention, is obviously through better quality and through better environment in the clubs. And I'm talking about quality now, yeah? Quality. Through a better quality, we might be able to retain more players, will automatically give us more chances to create better players. So I start from the quality to go to quantity and quality again, basically.
Do you think the pyramid looks great and it's all achievable, I think, but one thing we really got to endorse and really work harder on, do we have enough coaches to take the kids to that level?
Absolutely not. Not the quality of coach that you require either.
So how can we get better coaches then? Through what?
We need development coaches. I think it's development coaches we need.
Yeah, we need coaches who don't want to go to the senior football, all of them. Because
correct.
At the present time, everyone wants to be at SAP as a stepping stone, and everybody's wanting to train 18s, 20s, first grade, professional football. That is.
And in my opinion, and I agree with John and Nacho, in my opinion, the better coaches should be allocated to the younger ages.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
a no-brainer. But so obviously we rely. Australia rely on you, TDs, on your appointment, if that's the case, you know, because you are those that choose the coaches, correct? And I'm pretty sure that in your coaches selections, you might have an input and say, look, I think you'll be better placed in the under 12, in the under 11, under 13, rather than trying to go and win the medal with the under 18s, you know?
Yeah, that's the aim.
You can have an input on that. I'm pretty sure. But some of you might say no, that's not the case. I don't know.
We struggle to get coaches, David. You know, the overlying factor is the quality of coaches, and the quantity of quality coaches is extremely limited. We then go into a process where we now have a two-tiered NPL 2 or NPL development, whatever you like. Every time we put another tier in place, we dilute the quality overall, both of the quality of the players and the quality of the coaches.
And what's our strategy to fix this?
Well, David, I was just about
obviously I don't want to go over, you know, outside the topic, but if it's a very valid point, and I'm happy to get deeper.
I think most of the clubs here are all struggling for coaches. I don't know how many people, if you advertise for coaches, would get more than a handful of people apply.
Mm-hmm.
And why?
Well, we try to retain our coaches the same way we try to retain our players. So we try and work on them. And everyone knows the best thing to be able to retain people and retain coaches and retain everything, all going well, is developing a good culture. So if you've got good culture for the good coaches and good players, they'll stay, they'll grow. So hopefully that's, well, I don't know, it's a stepping stone for our club. It's struggled in the past, and hopefully we can rectify that by creating that culture, because there's some good coaches out where we are, so we want to keep them.
What's the closest club to you, Chris?
Ipswich.
And how many Ks away is that?
Is that a local or a representative?
What's the closest development or academy club to you?
Yeah, it'd be Ipswich, either one in Ipswich, and that's, I don't know, 100K.
So there you go. So it's a lot easier for you to keep coaches than it is and get coaches than it is.
Yeah,
but there is only one option, basically.
But they're also parent coaches. So the way we get coaches is because their kids have been playing. So I think we've got 2, excluding the senior coaches, who don't coach their kids, which is something which we want to change. But they're good coaches. So the matter is trying to keep them in the system once their kids are finished.
Okay. Look, guys, thanks for your input once again. Look, conscious of time, I'll go ahead. The presentation is done. But yeah, keep in your mind and ask yourself these questions. What can community club do? Sorry, what can club and the community, the football community, do to try to fix this issue anyway, or to improve that pyramid to get wider and so on. Yeah, that's it. Tom, all yours. Stop sharing. Tom, let me know if you can. Yeah, cool.
Okay, guys, we'll just quickly whiz through this. So we've just spoken about, what the clubs can do and what we can do within our own program and our community. But what we're sort of going to look at in the next sort of fortnight is probably a little bit more sort of strategic based from clubs, and also maybe what Football Queensland can do to help with player movement. So the movement of players between club to club, how we can sort of engender a bit of a better working environment and sort of protect our relationships between each other, and with relation to quite an emotive topic of player movement and players going from club to club, which we want to move away from, trials and obviously long-term agreements. So we're going to whiz through a few bits, not a lot to sort of discuss, but a lot to consider. So we've obviously just started about our conversation starter about player retention and trials, and that's what all these discussions are about. It's a conversation starter. Obviously, we hold ourselves within these conversations, so acknowledge that the TSP Metro program, we're in exactly the same sort of position at the moment by looking at trials. Obviously, it's something that we don't want to do, and in 2021, we hope that we can move away from that. So the conversations we're having is, we hold the information the same to us as well. So this is what we'll cover on in the next sort of fortnight or so: long-term player agreements, and then player movement and trials. So yeah, mention that we want to have a bit of a better working environment. We all agree that we'd like to see more players retained at one club for a longer period of time, and where possible, get more players on a long-term agreement. Something that I want to talk to or just introduce you to, you might have sort of seen already, is something called a 7-day approach, which is sort of very prevalent in the UK outside of the professional leagues. And I think it's something that we can discuss about player movement and how it might just sort of build a bit of a better working environment between us. So very briefly, long-term agreements, positions. The notion, the idea is that you sign a player under 9, and these are the phases that we work in, and we may commit to them for 2 years, or it may be sort of a 4-year period that they stay within our club, and the commitment is always from the club. So the club is saying that this under 9, your position's safe for 2 years or for 4 years. What one of the benefits may be is that with non-long-term agreements, the trial process can be high turnover. The 3 or 4 that are marked in yellow and red here in one of our age group squads that maybe not offered a position, they might join a playing pool of 20, 21, and that's what one age group trial may look like. A long-term agreement trial may look very more settled in that period. So something to take into in the next fortnight, just to have some thought about, is what can a club expect from a player in a long-term agreement? So if you were setting out a long-term agreement, what would you say to that under 9, under 13, if you're going to commit to looking after their position for 4 years, what do you want that player to do? So for example, do you want them to let you know any activity that they're doing, school football, whatever? Are they only allowed to play football in your program? So that's just from the club aspect. The second point is, what is fair from a player and a parent to expect from your club in a long-term agreement? So is it providing best quality coaches? Is it 3 nights a week? All of the stuff that we would say we would do. And then the third point is, okay, so you've got a player that you're going to sign for 4 years. What happens if X, Y, and Z happens in the second year, which means that their position might not be tenable at your club? So what would make up a termination agreement from both parties? And I think Chris made quite an interesting point earlier. We've only got 18 or 16 positions per age group in our NPL program. So we have a responsibility, I think, to fill those positions with the best players in your region. So how do we manage that, those 15th and 16th players within a long-term agreement? So these don't need answers now, but just things to think about. We'll send this out so that when we come back in the next fortnight, we've got some things to build upon. So moving on, so a 7-day approach, like I say, is something that happens in the UK non-league quite a lot. And basically the premise is that if I want to contact John at Lions and I'm in the first team and I really like the look of their under-20 right back, and I like the look of them, instead of doing it sort of underhanded and getting a hold of the parent's number and giving them a call, a 7-day approach would be that I would pick up the phone or make an official contact to the club, to Lions. They would then have 7 days to talk to the player, and then after that 7th day, I could then go in and speak to the player about an opportunity at my club. So these are sort of the more formal details that come from the English FA. So I'll give you a chance just to have a look at the yellow, which is sort of how the rules sort of fall in place over there. So again, all this is about is just trying to build a bit of a better working environment, and then also it'd be interesting to get your thoughts around if that is applicable to junior players. If you think, actually, no, you know what, that's totally out of line, we shouldn't be sort of contacting players at all in junior ages, or do we do it just in a trial phase? So lots to absorb. Again, we'll send you these slides for you to have a think about. And then lastly, I guess, the responsibility of how we act and how we behave in terms of talking to players and trials and things like that. You know, there can be rules in place and there can be consequences, but ultimately it comes down to us as TDs. And I say that, you know, coming from a position of being a TD the last sort of 4 and a bit years, the code of conduct of how we behave, is that something that we need to generate and share between ourselves, so that we can be held accountable for our actions and behaviours moving forwards. So that's really it. And like I say, we'll send that out to you so you've got some ideas about what we're going to talk about over the next fortnight when we come back. So the main areas, just to recap, were the long-term agreements and the topics that might go into making up what a long-term agreement is. The 7-day approach, do you think it's a good idea? Do you think that it's something that we could introduce amongst maybe just advanced NPL, QPL clubs at the moment? And then lastly, do we need to build a code of conduct that we all agree to as TDs in relation to player movement? So that's it from me, and we'll sort of touch base again in the next fortnight, unless anyone's got any questions about those points.
Or any points, really.
No, I think we're all good there.
Okay, well, yeah, guys, if you have any comment, observation, please, just share it. It's fine.
I believe we need to add one thing. It was a common theme that should we consider a central database? We had discussion with Scotty and Mark about that, for players who are intending to potentially switch clubs or provide a safety net for those players. So maybe it would be an important subtopic to add.
Yeah, and the same is for coaches as well. So we are working on it. So hopefully you will have a database where you can, especially those clubs that don't have many good coaches, you have a database to pick from. Looking forward to the next one. What do you reckon? Couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks from now would be good. Give me a sign. Yeah. Okay, guys, really thanks for your time. Hopefully, especially those questions that we pose at the end of my presentation and from Tom as well in preparation for next week, will initiate some thoughts and maybe even some collaboration with some sister clubs or schools or whatever is available in your area. But yeah, once again, thanks for your time. And yeah, nice conversation tonight. I liked it, especially in the breakout rooms. So yeah, good stuff. Have a good night, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys. Talk soon.
See ya. Thank you.
Thanks all.